Hey ho, dear ones, how are we doing on this fine, fine day? I had a story pop up into my conscious awareness today, and I had other ideas for this episode, but it was so powerful. And Source was saying to me, you have to share this story. And I said to Source, well, this is a small, insignificant story. What's the point? And Source says, tell the story and the point will be revealed. And I know that part of the point, or maybe the entire point, is that we are all so much more powerful than we realize. And it's about answering the question, could something or some gesture or some small thing, some small occurrence, some small inspired action that you take, could it really be and eventually lead into something that's really powerful, that really makes a big impact on humanity, in the lives of others? Does it actually translate into anything? Could I, little old me, living my little old existence, and maybe I don't have 100,000 followers on social, and maybe I'm not posting big, fashy, glammy photos of myself on Instagram, and maybe I'm not making high-powered reels that I'm paying someone a lot of money to make for me. Maybe I'm just doing my little thing, my little aligned thing, in my little corner of the world. And maybe, just maybe, that's so much more powerful than the glitz and the glam and the reels and the posts and all that craziness that we see when we scroll on our news feeds. This is where I'm strongly sensing this episode is going. But before we get into all that, I would love to share with you a listener review. And this comes from someone called Soul Guided. Man, whoever you are, I love your handle. And Soul Guided says, Allison's down-to-earth, heart-centered approach has grounded guidance with a deep spiritual purpose. Yes, I try. A must-listen for intuitive entrepreneurs and anyone living or curious about living a soul-centered life. Thank you so much, Soul Guided. I'm so grateful for you. And dear listener, if you haven't yet, please hit subscribe wherever it is you listen. Head on over to a section that will say ratings and review. You can also find a link in the show notes. Give me a rating and share with me specifically in a review what you received from this episode or any episode, and I will read your powerful words on the air. It is how more people can find this podcast so we together can serve more light workers around the world who are ready to live a more soul-centered life. All right, getting back to today's topic, which I believe is, could small acts really be so powerful and create such an impact? So let's just see where this goes. Spirit is just guiding us through it together. In today's episode, I reveal a story of a powerful yet simple energetic connection. Why Source is calling me to share it today, and how something so small could actually really be so powerful. We'll end on an invitation that will have you owning your own power and seeing the bigness in it and the massive impact you're here to make on humanity. So please stay with me until the end. Well, hey there. You and I together, we're creating a global community of soul-guided leaders, coaches, healers, and entrepreneurs called the Soul Guide Circle. In the Soul Guide Circle, we're inviting in our spiritual gifts to get our clients even more results in transformation and create massive referral buzz. Find a link to join our closed Facebook group at AllisonScammell.com or in the show notes. All right. Today, I am sharing a story that happened roughly 15 years ago or so, give or take. I don't remember exactly. It was after my near-death experience, so I was on a new spiritual path. And so it was in the aftermath of the first spiritual retreat I had ever gone on. And I went to the Monroe Institute. For those of you who are familiar, if not, we'll leave a link in the show notes. And they do great spiritual retreats. And I think it's really great, wherever you are on your path, but also for people who are on the newer side of the journey. And that was me. And I'd never been on one before. And they do, essentially they guide you through these journeys in the body. So they have these guided meditations they take you really with this advanced sound technology to help you get into a very deep meditative state. And you're basically just exploring inside of your own consciousness. That's what I love. It's not an astral projection out into the astral planes, although they do have an astral projection retreat, or at least they used to. But the essence of the Monroe methodology is really sort of journeys inside the body, which I find to be very attractive because it's very accessible for anyone, no matter where you are on your path. Whilst I have found astral projection, so those projecting outside of your physical body, to be a little bit more challenging and to require someone who's kind of been at the spiritual journey for a while. So I went through this week. It was an absolutely extraordinary experience where I just felt layers and layers of the onion peeling back from my own soul. And there are lots of short stories I could actually share with you from this week, kind of big spiritual breakthroughs. But that's not what I'm being called to share with you today. What I'm being called to share with you today took place after the retreat. And so I was there for 7 days and 7 nights of deep meditation, breakthroughs, peeling back layers, tapping into my higher self in profound ways. So on the 7th day, I was vibing so high. I was just in this absolute blissed out state of higher consciousness. And I guess this is a common thing that happens after these retreats because you're releasing so much heaviness, tapping into so much higher and higher frequencies. By the end, your energy is just aligned and blissed out. So after the retreat, I was heading to Washington, D.C. for a few days of work before heading back to where I was living in Europe at the time. And while I was there, I decided to go to a spiritual bookstore. And it was the first time in my life, because I was relatively new to the spiritual journey, that I'd ever gone to a spiritual bookstore. And I was so blissed out, I just remember saying to myself, well, I feel really called to buy one book. Of course, I feel like I could buy like 25 because I'm interested in all of these topics, but I don't want to overwhelm myself. So I am going to walk out of this bookstore with one book. So I'm walking through the aisles and just waiting for the book to find me. And then in a little corner, hidden, not very visible, I started to zone in on this book. And it started to speak to me, buy me, buy me. And I went to it and I picked it up. And it was a book about our 7 main chakras and how they compose a system of energy centers within the body. Now, I had done a lot of yoga up until that point, so I was familiar with the chakras. And I remember being disappointed because I thought, oh, I already kind of know a little bit about this. I wanted to get something really new and out there and cutting edge. So I was a little bit disappointed, but I was like, all right, for some reason, this book wants my attention. And this isn't even yet the point of the story. I'm going to get to the point of the story right now. So I take the book. I walk over to the cash register. I put the book down. And if you can kind of tell, I'm not fully remembering all the details of the story. I can't remember the exact year. I can't remember where I was living at the time. I think Belgium. But boy, do I remember the next 2 minutes of my life with acute awareness. I put the book down on the counter. There's a man working there. I remember exactly what he looked like. He had a goatee. He had gingery blonde hair, short-ish, maybe a few inches taller than me. Straight hair kind of waved back. And he and I looked at each other. Like really looked at each other deep in the eye. And this energetic connection between us almost made me take a step back. It was not romantic. It was not sexual. It was two awake, aware, vibing high human beings having a soul-to-soul explosive connection. I don't think he said anything to me. I don't think I said anything back. If there were words exchanged, I do not remember. But I vividly remember his piercing blue eyes and that human to human connection. Now I'm getting the message now as I share the story with you that he was someone that I knew from a past lifetime. So our energy had a long history. We had a long soul history. And we agreed on a soul level to connect in this lifetime, in that one moment at that spiritual bookstore, I believe somewhere in Old Town, Alexandria, Virginia. I don't know. Maybe some way, somehow, he's going to find this episode and listen and reach out to me. But I don't even think so. I think that we had that moment. We connected. We had that explosion. And it activated something in each other. And this is why Source called me to share this very simple story. It's a story of eye contact. On the surface, you might be thinking, geez, Allison, could you share us about one of those crazy things that happened during the spiritual retreat? Well, to be honest, when I reflect back at that really intense time, like nothing was actually more intense than this moment of eye-to-eye connection, energetic explosion connection. This is what stands out most vividly in my memory. Source is asking me to share it because Source wants us to know that it really can be this simple. And something this simple really can be that powerful, both for you and your own experience and how that ripples out into humanity. Source hears it many times in the collective. All of us light workers saying, oh my gosh, there's so much craziness happening in the world. Who am I to do anything about it? I'm so small. I don't have $1 billion. I don't have a massive following on social. Source was calling me to share this story to tell you bigger is not better in the physical sense. Bigger is more powerful in the energetic sense. And usually when it's energetically big, it's also very subtle. Not always, but often it's subtle. Eye contact at a bookstore on a random Tuesday afternoon. Subtle, simple, small, yet so powerful. 15 years later, I'm still talking about it. And when I asked Source now, well, what was it meant to activate inside of me? Well, first of all, it was meant to give me this awareness of how subtle and small can be so powerful when it's a question, or it's a story of soul to soul connection or energetic connection, or just a question of energy and consciousness. But also on an individual level, that energetic jolt, if you will, awoken inside of me some parts of my energy that were lying dormant. So aspects of my spiritual gifts were asleep inside of me. But that jolt was able to stimulate that part of my consciousness enough to awaken it. Because that's what's happening now, dear ones. We are awakening. And the big part of the awakening is awakening what's always been inside of us. It's always been within us, but it's just been lying dormant. Aspects of our consciousness, aspects of our own thinking, actually. Our brains are awakening to be able to analyze more, think more. Our energy is awakening. Our consciousness is expanding. We are able to vibrate at higher frequencies and sustain those higher frequencies for longer periods of time, which means that we are tapping into the higher and higher layers of our own potential. And when it's a question of energy, small gestures such as making a true eye contact with the right person, like how could that be so powerful? Because it's when two high vibrational consciousness energies of light connect in a meaningful way. And there's many different ways to connect. There's, yes, eye contact in this simple story, but there's the connection you make with clients in session. There's a kind gesture to a stranger on the street. There's helping out a friend when she really needs you. There's sharing a moment with your own child, feeling their love. As you say, tell them you love them. There's so many different ways that we connect to each other on a human to human level that creates this explosion. It's this energetic connection that's very high in frequency. And it's that high frequency energy that ripples out and out and out. You know, getting back to the eye contact, it was like we were seeing inside each other's souls. I don't know how else to really put it into words. It was kind of an ineffable experience, meaning it was so big, it transcends words. But what we do when we grow spiritually is we invite it in. We all have the power to invite in these energetic explosions. And they usually show up in those places and in those ways that you least expect it. So you can do it with me right now. I invite in an energetic activation. And I am open and ready to receive it and notice it when it arrives in any way that it wishes. How easy it would have been for me to say, oh, well, that was kind of a funny eye contact exchange. That felt pretty powerful. Okay, let me boogie on down the road and go on with my day and not give it a second thought. I mean, I know I've done that in other experiences, just sort of downplayed it. Well, that was no big deal, so obviously it has no big meaning. But what I invite in for you now that we're getting aware and we're understanding what's happening, and we're understanding what this expanded consciousness looks like and how it shows up into our experience, I invite you to notice, ask questions. Ask questions. Every time you ask a question, you kick off a co-creative process with your divine guidance team so that they may get you the guidance and direction and answers you seek. So we're inviting in an energetic spark that's going to kickstart some of the dormant energy and potential inside of us so that we may grow to the next level of our potential. And we're also going to notice when those sparks arrive. And whenever you're not sure, just ask your higher self. Was that energetic spark here for a reason? Did it have some meaning for me? Was there a greater message there? That higher self, you're trying to get to me. And it's very highly likely you're going to get the answer yes back from your higher self. that this small, simple act was actually way more powerful than you realize. My invitation for you this week is to do just that. Invite in your own spiritual growth. Invite in a deeper connection to the divine, and invite in an energetic spark that ignites what may be dormant inside of you. And then I invite you to notice when those sparks and that energetic amplification starts to arrive and unfold into your experience, remembering that yes, it could be that simple, and yes, simple is that powerful. That's a wrap for this week, my dear ones. If you loved this episode, and I hope you did, head on over to wherever it is you listen, hit subscribe, give us a rating and review, and I will read your enlightened words on the air. And as always, until next time, may your soul guide the way.